This is for entertainment purposes only. This short story is only for people over the age of 18.
Why did I make a hypnosis machine? Because I could. I'm smart enough, with enough equipment, and the drive to make things easier. Not just easier to hypnotize someone, but easier to have people do whatever I want. I wanted people to not just realize I'm correct, but I didn't want to have to wait around for this to happen. I wanted people to just do whatever I said, when I said, without having to explain myself. That's why I made a hypnosis machine. It wasn't hard. I took an EEG of a person's brain when going into hypnosis. I then looked at MRI and CAT scans of people going into hypnosis. I then combined that with a human brain simulator that I improved on. I found what it would take to put people into a hypnotic state that they would accept whatever I said without question. It took an afternoon. By evening I had a prototype. Modulated lights, sounds, a few electromagnetic pulses, hooked up to a camera with enough resolution to pick up micro-expressions run through an adaptive algorithm, and you've got a hypnosis machine. What I needed was someone to test it on. I had no intention of trying it on myself. If I fried my brain, then the world would be deprived of all the great advances I have working in my mind. Undine Abatangelo, or just Dine, was a complete bitch to me. I say that now, despite what she became, because every time I saw her and said something to her, she would flip me off. Granted, usually I would say something about her looks. I don't care what color her skin is. That's not something she could change. The wig she wears, when I know she has perfectly fine hair. Her breast implants that I swear get larger every year. Her constant exercising in skimpy outfits. Even her choice in being a stripper at a gentleman's club are all choices. I think they are the wrong choices. This, again, is something she'll eventually realize I'm correct about, but why waste time? My prototype hypnosis machine, which I just started calling him, was barely portable. I didn't weigh it, but think holding up a bowling ball with a parabolic dish on the front. When I heard Dine pull up next door, in front of her townhouse, I picked up him and ran for the door. I got my door open just in time to see Dine unlock her front door.
Hey Dine.
I remember saying. I think she said something about not calling her that. I wasn't paying attention as I pressed the awkwardly placed button on him to activate everything. The damn thing got really hot in my hand, but the lights, the sounds, and the discharge of EM pulses hit Dine right in the face. In a second she was hypnotized and standing there obediently waiting for orders.
Come over here, and come inside my place,
I said to the entranced woman.
Okay,
Dine said, or something like that as she went down the handful of steps from her townhouse and went up the few steps into my townhouse. I'm not the kind of guy that doesn't appreciate women. I love how they look. I'll admit, I am an ass man. Dine's ass was nice. Dressed in her leather microskirt and red bralette, with 5-inch black heels, she was nice to look at. I can see how men would pay money to see that body naked. I don't have to. I closed the door to my place and looked the blank woman over. Dine was about my height. Her skin was dark as black coffee. Her breasts might have been bowling balls at one time. She was slim and toned from all her exercising. Her ass was what many would call buns of steel, with dimples on either side that sloped down to her deceptively short legs.
Strip,
I said, and when Dine started to sway, I stopped her.
I don't care about your dancing, just get naked.
okay,
Dine said, and was soon standing there without a stitch of clothing on. Dine didn't have to be naked, but I really liked seeing her ass. I had downloaded tests from the internet to see how deeply entranced and obedient Dine really was. Most of it was rather clinical, until it wasn't. I didn't see the first time when one test of obedience was having the woman expose herself. Done. I might have read that and didn't remember it. One other test was have the person self-pleasure themselves to a climax. It was on the list. Dine was given her orders, and there was no hesitation. Would there have been any if she wasn't a stripper? Who knows? I just know seeing her fingers flying between her legs, going so fast my LED lights were doing a strobe effect on her fingers. I wasn't expecting Dine to climax so fast, or hard. I'll admit, I had only seen women masturbate on the internet. There's something about the smell, the sound of their breathing, the feel of the heat coming off of them, that is lost going through a camera. When done, Dine was a sweaty and dripping mess. I loved it. I'm not sure there was anything she wouldn't do for me. However, I did know I couldn't keep Dine hypnotized forever. That's why I had a script for enslaving her to me, even when awake. I couldn't find the script. I knew I had saved it on my phone, but I'll be damned if I knew where in that info was then. Or now. I made up my own. I can't tell you exactly what orders I gave to Dine. I just don't remember. I just remember saying to that entranced and blank woman about being my slave and how I'm her master. Looking back on it, I can see how non-politically correct this was, but I made an invention to take over people's minds, so just tack another moral reprehensible item on the list. Mostly I left Dine as she was, but she would increase her exercising, mostly her ass, and she would be a lot friendlier with me. I didn't want to have sex with Dine, just yet, but it was one of my plans. I wanted to make my him smaller, lighter, and far more acceptable to the general public. I'd rather do that than fuck Dine. I was going to fuck her so much later. The first thing Dine said to me, when I snapped my fingers to wake her up was,
Thank you for enslaving me, master.
I was happy with the results. I sent her back to her place. I wondered what Dine would think when she dreamt of me treating her like a sex slave and woke up with a huge orgasm. I never asked. My basement was my laboratory. I've made so many inventions over the years that it is utterly ridiculous. What's even more ridiculous is my kitchen gadgets have barely outperformed my hospital gadgets. And if you've been to a hospital in the last 10 years, then one of my gadgets was likely used on you. I have a lot of money and don't have to care about what I spend, for the most part. I have money people to deal with making sure my finances are good. Are they stealing from me? I had an invention to find out. I just needed it smaller. What I ended up doing was getting a projector I got off the internet. It was a great disguise. It had speakers, a camera, a projection hole for the optical parts. The EM generators were miniaturized and their power output was increased while their power consumption was decreased. That left the battery and electronics. I ended up cloning the electronics onto my phone and just setting up a simple Bluetooth communication between the projector and my phone. This saved on size, weight, and it didn't seem odd to have a projector hooked up to my phone. The only odd thing would be someone had to look into the projection for the HIM to work. I decided to call this version of my thing HIM 2, since it was a lot of the old components into a better-looking device. I didn't even have to be near it for him to work. If I saw a good-looking woman, I just needed to tap the program on my phone, and when she looked into the projection, she would be mine. I will admit that having Dine as my obedient slave was nice. She would come over, strip naked, and clean my place. She would cook food. She would give me blowjobs. She would have sex with me however I wanted. I, for some reason, had to make her believe she was fine with me calling her Dine instead of Undine. I could have made her okay with any name, and if I cared, I could have been cruel and really fucked up her name, and make her love it. One night, after giving me an above-average blowjob, Dine was zapped again by my latest version of him. No weaknesses, no absence of control anywhere. That was good since I soon was going to talk to some people that wanted to hire me for a project they were having issues with. When I woke Dine up, she offered up 2 suggestions. I have to admit, they were good suggestions. One was to put a bright flashing light on the HIM to get people's attention before hypnotizing them. The other was making a way to implant commands into people's minds without having to tell them to obey, every single time. Those were easy and worthwhile suggestions. To thank Dine for contributing, I asked what she wanted for her help. Dine wanted a fellow stripper to be enslaved, so Dine could finally fuck her co-worker. Dine was not stupid. Dine knew that if I enslaved this other woman, then eventually those 2 women would fuck each other while serving me. Tamara Kovaleva came to America in her early teens from Russia. She kept the accent. Blonde hair, blue eyes, and the body of a gymnast, she fell on hard times to make her a stripper. I didn't know that Dine was a lesbian, and I'm saying this wasn't a choice in her life. What kind of sex you want is what you want, and if that sex involves leather straps, feathers, or strap-on sex toys, then I will not judge. That being said, Dine liked women in bed with her, and Tamara doesn't. I let Dine borrow him and a copy of the program to get Tamara the next night. I wasn't stupid and set the program to self-delete soon after enslaving Tamara. I shouldn't have worried because as soon as I met Tamara, Dine introduced me as Tamara's master. 2 women at the same time gets complicated. 2 obedient women at the same time is probably less complicated, but if I'm not paying attention, I'm not sure whose leg is wrapped around me, while not sure exactly where my manhood was. It didn't take long to find out why Dine wanted Tamara right away. Tamara was going on to a new life as a dental hygienist. She was to start in 2 days. If Dine had any chance of fucking Tamara, It was going to be there and then. I was happy to let the two of them go at each other. I just got to watch since I was spent. Tamara took to being bisexual without resistance. I say bisexual, but I'll be the only man she will ever, or could ever, have sex with. I made her believe I was just that good in bed. It was then I was wondering if I had gone beyond hypnosis and into the world of mind control. Funny thing about going to big tech companies and seeing if I could help them. Those tech companies seem to always have government contracts. I mentioned that because the job I was being hired for was absolutely government-focused. A laser that could read any text, in less than a fraction of a second, on a speeding missile, and transmit it back to base. The issue was reading through paper. If a file was closed before things went boom, then whatever was in that file was lost. Fine. It didn't take a genius to just have an infrared laser. It can read the heat given off down a few pages, and then using AI to piece together what was on the different layers of pages. As long as things weren't kept in coolers, then it should work. I got skeptical looks the first time I said this. I pulled out him and entranced everyone in the conference room. Dine's idea of implanting optical commands worked, as when I snapped my fingers to wake them up, all got on their knees, at the same time, no hesitation, and were bowing towards me. A little over the top, but I had them back to sitting and agreeing with everything I said in no time. If I was a normal person, I probably would have been hunting women down for sex. No one has ever called me normal. I went right to work designing and testing my infrared laser idea. 2 weeks in, and we had a working prototype. Another 2 weeks, and we tested it out on a real rocket. It worked, okay, but I could have made it better. If I was given a chance. I was arrested, not read my rights, shoved into a solitary confinement cell, and was kept there for 2 weeks. Food, limited showers, limited cleaning, and only contact with a hole in the door for the food tray. Given enough time, I probably would have escaped. It didn't get that far. The idiots in the government took apart my IM. They figured out what each component did. When they tried to put it back together, it didn't work. My phone was hard to get into, and when they did, they found my program wasn't working either. I'm not stupid. They want my machine, then they had better play ball with me. I'm the one with the power. It took negotiation on my part to get freed. Then more negotiations and agreements to keep that freedom. I make multiple HIM devices for the government, and they pay me and let me live a semi-normal life. We'll see how long that lasts. For now, I have a professional lab. Basically everything in my basement moved to someplace for the government to keep an eye on me. I have Dine and Tamara with me. Dine has become a coordinator of what the government wants me to work on. Tamara got a job cleaning people's teeth at a Navy base. I get to enjoy these two at night, or whenever I want. I have a 3-person staff, each with a different part of him to make, but only I know the final component and how to fit everything together. My him are made, and then taken, and I never see them again. Here's the kicker. I was going to entrance everyone, and leave the government's ever-watchful eyes. I was more than just a guy that made hypnotic machines. They knew this, and started giving me more challenging tasks. I found I liked the challenges. I made a few inventions, which the government sent me a patent attorney for me to make money off my inventions. I was given a huge budget, staff, equipment for the asking. I think the government just wanted me occupied and watched. I was fine with that. I like pushing my brain's limits. Was it so bad, working for the government? Not really. I was in charge of my lab, and everyone in it. The feds knew I entranced my staff. They were fine with that. They even seemed to not care that I could take a personal him out and enslave other women, for whatever I wanted. As long as I figured out how to do their dirty work, they were fine with whatever I did. What did I want? I wanted people to listen to me. That was the ultimate goal of making my hypnosis machine. Now the government did listen. Not only listen, but make my world more interesting. I am given a challenge nearly every day. My brain that won't shut down with ideas are brimming with things I can do. If the government doesn't care what I do enough to stop me with my other inventions, why should I care what they do with my hypnotic machines? That's why I'm writing this, at my attorney's advice. I wanted the government to understand where I'm coming from. When I tell them that I'm in on this partnership, then they can understand that I'm all in. I even have new ideas on how to make my hypnosis machines smaller and more powerful. Think about having a smart watch that can take over a filled elevator in less time than it takes to go between floors. Yeah, I'm all in.
The end. This was a work of fiction. Any similarity between people, living or dead, is purely coincidence. This scenario did not, or should not have happened in real life. Thank you for listening.